I'm calling this presentation Lighting with Layers. I'm going to demonstrate yes, count them, two different techniques for adjusting an image that might look like this, so it dramatically changes the lighting to look like this. Yes, in both of these presentations, we'll demonstrate this technique, but only one of them will actually use layers. Mr. Brown chose Lighting with Layers because it sounded good, but in fact, only one of these presentations will actually use layers. Now on with our movie. Let's go back to our original image and demonstrate technique number 1. Going up here to the filter menu, and then down to render, and over to lighting effects. That's right, you've seen it on TV, now use it at home. In the lighting effects dialog, the default is currently selected. I'm going to select a built-in style. Clicking here on default and moving down to soft omni. Why is he choosing soft omni? Because I like it. I'm going to click here in the center and move my focal point here to the center of my image. I could adjust the edge points around the circle to adjust the size of the omni light source, like that. That looks pretty good. I can also adjust the intensity here. I'm going to drop that to about that point. I'm going to also adjust the ambience here with a negative or positive value. I'm going to move this up just to about that point. This looks good. I'm now going to click OK. Let's take a look at the results. Now that's interesting. However, it appears that she has a pretty bad sunburn, though I do like the way the light is dropping off around her. How do we get rid of the sunburn but keep the light in the way it drops off around her? Well, that's easy. Up here to the edit menu and select Fade Lighting Effects. Now check this out. Under the mode adjustment, we're going to switch from normal to darken. That's right, we will only darken the image. We will not lighten the image with this effect. Watch the screen carefully as I let go of my mouse. Ooh, cool. I'm going to click OK. Look at that. I've maintained the nice drop off of light around her, but her face has not been sunburned badly by the lighting effects filter. So that is technique number 1. And of course, it did not use layers. Now, I want to demonstrate the second technique that does use layers, but it gives us a little bit more control. So let's now return to our original image. Down here in the history palette, I'm going to select the original snapshot. We now are looking at our original image. So let's get our next technique started. And that's going to start up here in the tool palette where I've selected the elliptical marquee tool. I'm going to move into my image area, click and hold, and drag away from the center point while holding down the Option or Alt key, so the center of my ellipse will appear at the first point in which I clicked on the screen. Moving away until my ellipse looks like this. What are we doing? We are creating something that would represent a spotlight across our image. This is then the shape of the spotlight that I want to cast the light through. I also want to transform this ellipse. I'm going to move up here to the Select menu and down to Transform Selection. I'd like to rotate this ellipse, moving outside of the selected region, then clicking and holding when I see the rotation tool appear. I can then rotate this into position. I can also move inside the selected region and move it around, or even adjust the control points on the edges like this. Again, I'm creating this imaginary spotlight across my image, something that looks like that. Then I'm going to hit my Enter key. So now it's time to add the shading to this selected area. And as I said earlier, we're going to use an adjustment layer to do this. Now watch carefully. When I do this, this selected region will become a mask attached to the adjustment layer. Moving over here to my Layers palette, in fact to the base of my Layers palette, clicking on this icon, Create New Fill or Adjustment Layer. Now you may think that I'm going to select levels, but you would be wrong, because if I were to adjust the shade of the background using levels, it would adjust the hue and saturation of my colors. I would like to separate these away from this adjustment by selecting hue and saturation. Because as you see here, I can adjust the lightness values only without adjusting the hue or saturation. Now, isn't that cool? I'm going to go to about this point, at which time you will say, but Mr. Brown, you are making the center of that selection darker when in fact you want the outside to be darker. Well, you would be right. For Mr. Brown is going to click OK and demonstrate how to invert this mask. With the mask selected, as you see here in the Layers palette, we will now move to Image, Adjustments, Invert. And we will invert this mask so our spotlight seems to be beaming onto our image like this. Now, once again, you're saying, but Mr. Brown, that is a rather hard, harsh spotlight. Wouldn't you like that to be nice and soft? And Mr. Brown would say, certainly. We can do that next with another filter. We're going to filter the mask which is attached to the layer mask. We're going up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I'm moving my cursor into the screen here, and I'm going to target the edge of the mask and click once so that it previews over here in the Gaussian Blur dialog. I can, of course, move this with the hand tool and adjust the position here as well. Now watch this. As I adjust the radius here up to a fairly large value, and of course, the value I'm choosing here today is based upon the resolution of this particular image. That looks pretty good. A really nice, interactive way of controlling the soft edge. We now click OK. So once again, you're saying to yourself, is he done? Is it complete? Because the results here look a lot like the results we got when we ran the lighting effects filter. What's the difference? Well, that's very nice of you to ask, because here are a few of the differences. Number one, I can go back in and double click on the hue and saturation adjustment layer and make adjustments, and I could not do this with the lighting effects filter after I had run the filter. So that's number one. Number two, while still targeting this hue and saturation adjustment layer, I can move to my Move tool over here in the Tools palette. I can, of course, click on the screen and I can move the lighting effect. Aha! That's number two. Now check this out. I'm going to go up to Edit and down to Free Transform. Then I'm going to select the Command 0 or Control 0 key so I see all of my control points. I can now adjust the size and rotation of the mask which is being used by the adjustment layer. That's something you cannot do after running the lighting effects filter. I'm going to hit my Enter key so those adjustments take effect. But wait, there's one more. I can now go over here and bring up my Levels adjustments under Image, Adjustments, Levels. Check this out. I can adjust the levels so that it adjusts what areas are light and dark here. And remember, I'm adjusting the mask, and the mask is controlling the hue and saturation adjustment layer. So I'm letting in more light or reducing the amount of light. That's incredible. Remember, these are things you could not do when running the lighting effects filter, because once you ran it, you cannot adjust or move these elements. I'm going to now click OK. So there you have it. Two incredible ways to increase the drama of your photographs. The first technique, of course, using the lighting effects filter. And the second technique with a hue and saturation adjustment layer with a mask. Keep these two techniques in mind and give them a try on your next project when you need more drama.